Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by BASF.
I'm Kelvin Hepner for Real Agriculture, and we are focusing on pea leaf weevils as part of this Pulse School. We're pleased to be joined by Laura Schmidt, production specialist with Manitoba Pulse and Soybean Growers. And Laura, first of all, maybe introduce us to pea leaf weevils as a pest. They are relatively new in the eastern side of Western Canada.
Yeah, so for Manitoba, this is a new pest to us. We first found pea leaf weevil in Swan River area in 2019, and since then we've been trying to get an idea of their distribution. Last fall we did a big survey push going into those pea crops post-harvest. We collected some weevils and we confirmed that they're pretty common in western Manitoba. So what this weevil is, it's a little adult weevil that we're capturing and identifying. It causes some very characteristic damage to pea plants. It's leaf notches where it looks like someone took a hole punch to the edge of the leaf. So that's really easy for us to scout for. Those hole punch kind of defoliation, we're not really worried about the feeding damage from those adult weevils. It's just that in the spring, once those adults have started feeding on their host crops, the peas and the faba beans, they're starting to lay eggs already. Those eggs are hatching, the larvae are burrowing below ground into our root nodules. So we're really losing a lot of yield because those larvae are feeding on the rhizobia in those root nodules, and we're losing that nitrogen fixation benefit. So we have other weevils here in Manitoba, but it's this pea leaf weevil that we're really worried about. So we wanted to make sure that we were capturing and that we actually had this problem pest, as opposed to just the leaf notching that can be caused by other weevils. So we have that confirmation. What we're trying to focus at the crop diagnostic school here today is educating agronomists about this new pest, but also how they can get involved in this survey. So in the spring, when those peas are from V2 to V6, so right around that herbicide application window, we're trying to encourage agronomists to go into those pea fields. What we're doing is we're scouting the field edge and we're counting the total notches per plant, so that characteristic leaf notch. Those notches are related to the weevil populations in the field, and we can use that information to help inform our farmers' management decisions for the future. Because we have foliar insecticides that are registered for pea leaf weevil, but they're ultimately not effective. They're not effective for a couple reasons. One is that those adults, once they've started feeding, have already laid the eggs, so it's more of a revenge spray. The other is we have a pretty long window of weevil emergence in the spring, so you'll have multiple migrations into the field, so you're not really capturing every weevil with that spray. What does look like a better management option so far is seed treatments, insecticide seed treatments, but they're not a complete solution. They only actually kill about a third of the weevils. The rest are just paralyzed or stunned, so we're just delaying those egg layings and that larval hatch, so hopefully the peas are a bit bigger, there's more nodules, they can compensate a bit better. So it's not a complete solution, and the other piece with insecticide seed treatments is we'd like to inform our farmers before they make that management decision what population levels they have. Are you likely to see an economic return from that management choice to put on that seed treatment? What it looks like right now in Manitoba, since this pest is just getting established here, those seed treatments are unlikely to provide an economic return at this point. If we are in northwest Manitoba, where they've been around a bit longer, these weevils, that's where we're actively monitoring these populations. For the southwest Manitoba and central Manitoba, we're more so just trying to educate agronomists on what this weevil is, keep an eye out for it in the future, based on some climate modeling on across the prairies. Of our prairie provinces, Manitoba falls in the favorable to very favorable category. So while population numbers have been declining in Alberta and Saskatchewan from the dry weather, we've got lots of moisture to work with here in Manitoba. We're likely to see this population increase a little bit, so we want to keep an eye out.
So wet conditions are conducive to it?
Generally just more soil moisture, as well as we have some cooler temperatures. So when I think about that climate modeling map, most of western Manitoba is favorable, and then as we move into eastern Manitoba, it becomes very favorable. The flip side of that is we don't have a lot of peas in eastern Manitoba. More moisture also means more root rots, so we generally don't have peas in that region, which is kind of nice.
for this in this case, yeah. What do we know about the spread of the weevil, where it is geographically located so far?
So far from the surveying we've done, we've confirmed its presence pretty much anywhere west of Highway 34 in Manitoba, so Saskatchewan border, east to Gladstone, Holland, and Pilot Mound. So generally if we're in the central region and we're seeing leaf notching, that's where we want to give myself or John Gavlosky a call so we can get some more information about that. Have we seen an expanded range, or is this one of the other weevil species that we're not so concerned about?
In the long term, if seed treatments aren't economical and we don't have other control options, is this a rotation issue, or how do we mitigate or minimize the chances of losing pea production and yield to this pest?
So this is a pest that's actively kind of under research in terms of management. Something that's very intriguing out of the research would be the idea of a trap crop. So in that pea field, you could plant a strip of faba beans. So faba beans, they stay greener a lot longer later into the season. So once that pea crop comes off and is harvested, all of those newly emerged adult weevils would move into that strip of faba beans. They'd be really concentrated in that strip, and then you could control them then when they're all concentrated in that faba bean strip before they move to those overwintering sites. Because once they're newly emerged, they don't really care what they're feeding on. They'll just feed very actively before going into overwinter. And that's a place you could trap them all and control them then.
Anything else that we should know at this point about pea leaf weevil in Manitoba, Laura? Putting you on the spot.
Anything we should know about? We should be aware of it. We should actively monitor it. We should include looking for those leaf notches when we're in there scouting for herbicide timing. Make sure we're just keeping an eye out for it and monitoring for this pest.
All right. Thank you for your insight, and we'll definitely be following what happens with this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.